Hon'ble Sumitra Mahajan, Speaker Lok Sabha, Sri Shashikant Sharma, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, Sri K.V. Thomas, Chairman Public Accounts Committee, Dr. P. Mukherjee, Deputy Comptroller and Auditor General of India, Sri Vinod Rai, former Comptroller and Auditor General of India, participant Accountant Generals coming from all over India, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a privilege for me to be present amidst you this morning once again at the same hall to address the Accountant Generals in the biennial conference, 28th edition, organized by Comptroller and Auditor General of India. You belong to the service, perhaps one of the oldest organized service in our country. Immediately after the Queen's Proclamation in 1858, when the power of administration was transferred from a mercantile company to the British sovereign, within 3 years of it, an organization came to exist. Rather, an act was passed to establish the Comptroller and Auditor General. Nomenclature varied from time to time, but in 1861, the Act of Auditor General of India was passed, and I remember in 2011 we celebrated the 150th year of the establishment of that institution through that act. Technically, the Auditor General was posted even in 1858. As it happened, CAG was posted in 1948, even before the acceptance or introduction of the Constitution on 26 January 1950. I am mentioning these things only to highlight how a tradition has built up over centuries and which has still relevance today, of course, with always having dynamic changes with the change of time. In a different context, once Albert Einstein made a comment, but I like to use this comment on this occasion. Einstein's observation was, it is important not to stop questioning. Coming to address the conference of the CAGs, it comes to my mind that I am amongst the very persons who always put questions and whose main job is to put questions. Why? Over the years, a very healthy and embryonic relationship between your organization and Parliament has been established. Even long before independence, accountability of the executive in matters of money and finance to the legislatures, even with a very limited power the legislatures having in those days. The organization of PAC, Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, or state legislature, came to exist in 1921. It was one of the oldest parliamentary watchdog body in the whole world. And there was no wonder how, as a member of the Public Accounts Committee, a legendary parliamentarian, Satyamurthy, put the members in charge of finance on the mat. And once observing the session of the Central Legislative Assembly, even Mahatma Gandhi, who was very skeptic about it, observed that if there were 10 Satyamurthis, perhaps the Britishers should have left 10 years ago. I am telling this story to point out the importance and important relation between Public Accounts Committee of Parliament and the organization of the CAG. I am happy that Honorable Speaker of the House of Lok Sabha, in addition to the Chairman of the Public Account Committee, have shared their perceptions about the role of the CAG's organizations, both in the center and in the states. As it is very correctly pointed out, India's economy is growing and emerging as one of the fastest growing economies in terms of GDP, in terms of purchasing power parity. Though we are way behind from the first three major economic power of the world, where US economy is more than 13 trillion US dollar, followed by China, around 11 trillion US dollars. We are well behind that. But keeping aside that fact, the fact remains, in the last decade, almost 10 to 12 years, India's economy registered steady GDP growth and had a short period of 8% plus GDP growth within the last decade. Despite major financial crisis of 2008 and still the lingering problems in Eurozone crisis, which has very adversely affected India's external sector as export to Europe and North America, are yet to take off. But the Indian economy has registered a GDP growth of 7.5% plus in 2015 and is expected to maintain this rate in 2016. And in this context, the governmental activities have increased very substantially over the years. With the change of the perceptions of role government is to play, not to maintain mere law and order within the society internally, and to protect the border from the inimical forces from outside. Functioning of the modern government, whether it is a declared welfare state or not, has expanded manifold. In terms of monetary transactions, I find at the time of independence in 1946-47, the receipts of the government of India amounted only to rupees 3,706 crores, and its expenditure was to the extent of 3,443 crores. Now you look at the receipts and expenditures of 2014-15, it is over 15 lakh crores of rupees. If we look at the budgetary figure, more than often I quote because it appears to be very funny and interesting that the sovereign India's budget for the first year of independent India, total revenue was 176 crores and total revenue expenditure was 197 crores. And perhaps finance minister today, or even at the level of the finance secretary, Shoshi or Mr. Vinod Rai can tell me that they provide exemption more than that on day-to-day basis. But that was the volume of the transactions. Activities have changed manifold. Concept of governance are rapidly changing, and I am happy that the government has accepted in its transactions the advantage of technological changes which have been brought in the system. And sometimes I wonder that I am the beneficiary. When I address the vice chancellors and students of the central universities spread all over India, I can simply have to connect myself with the help of the experts through the knowledge network. And speaking from my study, I can reach them. They can put questions to me, and I am to respond to their queries. And twice I have this exercise, just moving from my study to another room where these instruments and connecting machines are set up. Therefore, these technological solutions which we are finding today more and more apt in our governance will not only reach the people, government to the people in the fastest possible manner, our delivery services will improve substantially. This is one of the most deficient area in our governance, that we are not able to reach the benefit to the intended beneficiaries. And invariably, your organization will have to comment on it, and rightly so, because you are meant for them. Under Article 148 to 151 of the Constitution, has empowered, rather entrusted you with this job, and in that way you are discharging as the trustees of the Constitution of India, putting queries, pointing out lapses, identifying fault lines, and recommending the corrective lines. you are guiding the PAC, and close relationship between PAC and CAG's organization is ensuring the Parliament that what 543 members of Lok Sabha or 240 members of Rajya Sabha cannot do on the floor of the House on their behalf, PAC, ably assisted by CAG, are doing it. And in this connection, I would also like to bring to one specific point, particularly taking advantage of the presence of Speaker and Chairman, Public Account Committee, that this aspect is to be looked into. Volumes of reports come to Parliament through CAGs on all important transactions in the year. But a small portion of it can be dealt by the Public Accounts Committee. Simply because of non-availability of time. Then why? What would happen to these other transactions which are not chosen by the PAC to examine? One idea I am leaving with the Honorable Speaker, she can take it up with the government, Prime Minister and leader of the houses, that now we have constituted the departmental standing committee. These departmental standing committees are entrusted to make suggestions to the budget, to, of course, post facto scrutiny of the budgetary proposal relating to their department. Whether they can be entrusted by making amendments to the rules, that whatever PAC can do, PAC will discharge that job, but in regard to the other audit observations in respect of departments and ministries which are not examined by PAC could be looked into by these departmental standing committees. Of course, there would be necessity for political consensus, and if the Prime Minister, Honorable Speaker, takes the lead and convince Prime Minister, I think it may be possible to have some sort of additional accountability apart from the job which is being done by Public Accounts Committee. Of course, there will be constitutional niceties, I am fully aware of it, being in the government for so long, because money and finance are the exclusive domain of the House which is directly represented, not the upper house. But that problem could be resolved, as it has been resolved. I myself had to tackle a very ticklish issue on that issue. Every year, we associate members of the Rajya Sabha to the Public Accounts Committee. Once when a motion was moved, I was then leader of Rajya Sabha in early 80s. Some honorable member, perhaps jokingly made a comment that how is it? Always the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee is from Lok Sabha, not from Rajya Sabha. I think it was a part of joke or light comment, but somehow the chairman took very seriously and made an observation which caused a furore. I am not going into that, but which required me to have couple of meetings with the leaders of the various political parties and going between chair and then to resolve the problems. We have the system of associate members. But in a ruling, Speaker observed that associate members exercise their rights fully as the full member. No way in there, Thomas will bear me out because he is PAC chairman for pretty long period of time. that in the transaction of the business, in deliberations, there is no distinction between the members and associate members. Therefore, those technicalities of the supremacy of elected House of Parliament over money and finance can be examined and an amicable applicable solution will be found out. This is my suggestion. I thought that I will take this advantage of the presence of Honorable Speaker in this conference. I wish you all success. No doubt your deliberations, taking into account the very valuable and important suggestions emanating from Honorable Speaker, Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, and while introducing the subject, the observations made by CAG himself will be the guiding principles of your deliberations for the next 2 days. I wish you all success. You are the custodians, rather you are the trustees of the Constitution of India to play the role of most important watchdogs of helping Parliament to understand the detailed intricacies of financial transactions in the public funding by various organizations, government and other, where the money are spent from Consolidated Fund of India, protecting the interests of the people. Carry on this job. I wish you all success. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.